So Chad's back in the building, and in this episode we're talking about sort of a world first, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
The world's first electric adventure bike, called
Zero DSRX.
Very good. So stick around, we're going to have a good chat about it. So Chad, I've ridden a very small amount of electric bikes.
Yeah.
In fact, I've ridden two. One I thought was absolutely fantastic, and that was an electric trials bike.
Yeah, that is exceptional.
Yeah. Totally worked, totally fit what they were trying to do with it.
Yeah.
Massively impressed. And the other one I just thought was absolutely terrible, and that was like a Super Soccer electric scooter.
Yeah,
and I just thought, I just need to find the nearest wheelie bin and just chuck it in.
Stop me now. I'm having such a good time. I'm having a
Because I thought it was just pointless.
Yeah.
So you're kind of talking to an electrified newbie, someone who needs to be a convert, basically. And, you know, things are clearly moving on, right? Because, you know, you've just been out to test the first electric adventure bike, which I didn't think those words would go together in the same sentence. So tell us a bit about it.
So this bike is made by Zero. So they're Californian motorcycle electric builders. So they started off in 2010-ish, and they're kind of leading, they're kind of like the benchmark manufacturers in electric motorcycles.
Yeah.
Building big capacity electric motorcycles. And this is as they claim, is the world's first electric adventure bike. Now, Energica, an Italian company, make an adventure-styled motorcycle, but this is a real direct comparison to the legendary GS, for example. So we have a 19-inch front wheel, 17-inch rear, so that's classic adventure. It's got specific off-road modes, which is built in partnership with Bosch, which is a very similar system that you have on the KTM, for example.
The Super Adventure.
Yeah. So this has got specific off-road modes. It's been designed to go off-road. It's got, protection to go off-road, but it's also a big bike to do adventure rides on. So you've got multiple rider modes, cornering ABS, cornering traction control, cruise control, a little thing called park assist, which is forwards and backwards.
Really?
Yeah, so the new Honda Goldwing has it.
Okay.
And I believe there's a Harley and an Indian that has it. And it's called a crawl gear, I think they call it so essentially you go along and it'll just crawl, so the wheels are just turning.
Yeah.
Because the bike weighs 247 kg.
Yeah, it's a lump, yeah.
That's about the same as a GS, fully fueled.
Yeah.
And if, when you're on your tiptoes and you've got a slight incline.
Oh, yeah, no chance.
Just crawls backwards.
It's brilliant.
Or crawls forward. And when I've ridden the Goldwing of this, like a gravelly pub car park or something like that, where you've got to do a three-point turn, try that sat on a bike. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So they've added it because you can, because this is one of the advantages of electric. Same with the rider aids. It's got traction control, but that actually works far simpler, much easier. Because you don't have to cut ignition retard, there's no gears, because there's just one gear, you twist and go. Belt driven. There's so many advantages to the electric bike. As you found out when you rode the electric trials bike, no noise, no clutch, no gears, can't stall.
Yeah.
All those things is exactly the same when you ride this bike off-road.
That was loud.
Ultimately, the way it's going is that, we're being told that petrol bikes are going to be banned from blob date. That agenda may end up changing.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm not 100% precious about which way we end up going, as long as we've got functioning motorcycles to ride. Do you know what I mean? But obviously, it is a departure from the norm. So how does, for someone who hasn't ridden a big electric bike, what is the difference in feeling? Because I mean, so you haven't got the noise, but you've got the feeling of the tyres, you've got the road roar, you've got...
Yeah, so initially it's a little bit, ooh, that feels weird. Because you set off with no clutch, because you don't have one. And you've got no gears, so your feet straight on the pegs. And then torque is absolutely instant. So there's no like, ooh, it's just, and it goes forward. And it's got 5 different riding modes, and you've got rain and eco, which are kind of detuned. And then you've got, off the top of my head, Sport and Canyon, because it is made in America. So you've got got to have a Canyon mode.
Yeah.
Which are quite aggressive. And because it's instant, and there's that instant torque, and it's got masses of torque, it's fast.
Is it?
It's like in the mid-range, it's like, whoa, yeah. And it needs traction control. You know, it's got enough to lift the front. You can wheel it off crest. It's a 247 kilogram bike that you can approach a crest and go in perfect silence and lift the front. This is, even in eco mode from the traffic lights, it would leave, I would say, most adventure bikes to 40 miles an hour.
Wow.
Because you don't have to feed the clutch out and work out how to launch it. You just, and you go forwards. And it's absolutely instant. This bike's belt driven, and they've changed the belt slightly again to compensate for off-road. The rear sprocket's a little bit different.
Okay.
So it can get rid of stones if anything gets stuck in there.
It's clever.
Yeah, there's loads of aspects of this bike that I go, that's clever. Because the whole design process is you don't have the restrictions of a petrol bike. So you can put the seat kind of almost where you want, because you haven't got 2 protruding cylinders firing back. You've got no heat from an exhaust. The exhaust doesn't warm up the rear shock because there isn't any heat, there isn't an exhaust. So from a design perspective, you can almost do what you do. You don't have to hide a radiator.
No.
Because there isn't a radiator. We don't have to worry about the sump hitting, because there isn't a sump. It's got more ground clearance than an Africa Twin, but it's got a really low seat.
Okay.
You know, there's all these little bits you go,
There's a different amount of freedom to build.
Completely, and nobody's done it before. To me, I really like that engineering aspect. It's almost like early flying.
Ah.
You know, you go, well, which way should the engine go? I don't know. Should it have gears? I don't know. How hard is it to put cruise control on it? Well, not hard at all. It's a button, isn't it? Oh, so give it cruise control. And like where the petrol tank would be is a 20-litre storage cubbyhole for
Knickknacks.
whatever you want.
Sandwiches.
Yeah, the big,
Maltesers.
bread for the ducks. The charging point is kind of just below the headstock. The side plates are removable, so you just remove those with 2 tools that are under the seat. You put spare gloves in there. There's loads of little storage places because you haven't got a catch bottle. You know, you haven't got all these things that a petrol bike needs. But then there's the flip side, which is range and how far it'll go and recharge time.
Well, yeah, because on one hand, we're kind of talking about the freedoms of this new, electric powered train, but they've also got some challenges, haven't they?
Massive challenges, and they really highlighted Zero as like when you ride an adventure bike that's electric, you get more into the adventure. Because like when you ride through a town, you can smell, you can hear church bells, you can, when you ride off road, you can hear the, lit twigs snapping, and you can, it's kind of, and you go, okay, that's a bit of marketing stuff, maybe.
Clutching it.
Yeah.
Well.
But at the end of the day, as brilliant it is as an engineering project, as much as you've got to go to the engineers and go, what you've done was an incredibly difficult job, and you've produced something that handles and goes around corners and stops, and the rider aids work. But that's where you come to the stumbling block, is the range. So the range is what I tested, which is actual range, not what they claim, is you're going to have to recharge at about 90 to 110 miles of normal-ish riding. If you're on a highway, flat out, it's going to be less. But of spirited riding, about 100 miles.
Because you did a whole day on it.
Yeah, we didn't do a whole day, but what you have on the dash is your range constant, what you've done, and then percentage of battery.
Okay.
So for example, because there is regen is engine brake.
Sure.
So when you're in...
is that an active button, or does it automatically...
No, that changes with the mode.
Right.
So Canyon is really sporty with loads of engine brake. So it feels like a KTM, it feels like a V-twin.
Yeah.
So your range actually increases when you're in a sporty mode because you're using regen.
Okay.
So as we rode in Italy down Mount Etna. So as I'm coming down Mount Etna, my range was actually going up because I'd stopped using the brakes and I was using the regen. So it's just a little different way of riding. And as you change the different modes, it changes the regen because you don't want loads of engine braking when it's wet. So when you go into rain mode, it'll freewheel more into the corner like a two-stroke because you don't want the back pulling down and gripping. So range varies depending on the mode you're in, depending on the weight of the rider, depending if you've got pillion, if you've got luggage. But generally speaking, you're going to have to be looking to charge it 90 to 100 miles. So for those guys who want to go down to the south of France or ride from here in the Lake District to the north of Scotland, it's not for them.
In fact, it's a lot easier. So it'll spin.
Yeah, you know, historically, I would say an adventure bike, you know, you ride down to the south of France, you know, you bat out 600-700 miles in a day, you have an amazing time in, you know, it's the Alps or the Pyrenees, wherever, you come back through Germany, you get on the Autobahn, you ride flat out and you come home and you've done 2,500 miles in 2 weeks and you're absolutely exhausted,
Yeah.
but you've had a great time.
Yeah.
And this bike can't do that.
No. Okay.
Can't do it. Even if you plan it really, really, really well, you're gonna have to stop every 90 miles for a few hours. And it's just not, people will do it, but it's not gonna be enjoyable, it's not gonna be pleasurable.
Well, they did it on the long way.
Yeah, I think they had a little support crew.
Did they?
Yeah.
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 They got paid a few quid, I think.
Yeah, I think they had petrol generators following
Yeah,
them.
right. Yeah.
But in terms,
Rumor has it.
Rumour has it.
Yeah.
But if me and you went on enduro bikes here around the lakes, we could ride for 2 to 3 hours. We'd be absolutely shattered.
Oh yeah.
We'd stop at a pub and then come back, and we'd only covered 60 mile.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
this bike could do that.
And to be fair, that's why the trials bike really works.
Yeah.
Because ultimately you're doing no distance, are you?
No.
But you're exhausted and you're spending a lot of like physical,
Yeah.
time actually doing it. But
The best bit is we're going to be able to read the comments below this, and we'll be able to answer and look at those comments because people are going to go, well, yeah, I want to ride for 80 miles. I want to stop for a few hours and admire the view or visit a friend or, you know, go to a racetrack and watch some racing or go to a hill climb
Yeah.
or a motocross event. And whilst I'm watching this event or visiting friends, I can plug in for 2 hours and then ride 80, 90 miles home. And that's fine. That's what I'll have.
You know, well, just in what you've said, you've raised a really pertinent point. I think these machines are going to make more and more sense as the infrastructure improves.
Yeah, yeah.
Because at the moment, like in the Lake District, for example, you rock up at a beautiful place, telling you what, guarantee you 100% there isn't an electric charger there.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
No, same for me.
But
Same
we're
for me in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like last of the summer wine. There's 3 men in an old bath going down a hill, not
Yeah.
charging points everywhere.
Yeah, right, that's it.
Yeah.
And nor is the pub that you want to stop at with your friends, you know.
Yeah,
You want
yeah.
to stop at the Cock and Bull pub. There's not an electric charger there at the moment. But, you know, if, you know, governments and so on are committed to these things, they're going to have to change that, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're going to have to start putting
But if
this
you-
infrastructure in place,
Yeah.
and that way will in part make these bikes more usable and more accessible and more attractive, won't they?
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you live, say, London area, you could ride down to Brighton and back.
Yeah.
You know, and there's going to be multiple charging points around that area. If you can charge this at work or you've got solar panels, it's free to run, essentially. But the big hindrance will be, in the comments below that we'll read, is the range and the price.
Which is
£24,000.
24.
24. If you say it quickly, it's not as painful. So that is more.
It was
than
Multistrada V4S Sport
with spec,
with spec,
with everything.
and
That's
panniers.
with panniers full of champagne.
Which that bike, I have to say, I mean, we've just done a test on that bike, and it is fantastic.
So
But it's kind of like ironic, but that bike really struggles with range as well.
well, there you go. That's 130 mile.
Yeah.
But then it only takes you 5 minutes to fill it.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is with this bike, with the Zero, is so you've got the range and the price. Then when you look at the price and you look at the spec, So a GS Adventure is 20 grand with everything thrown on it, fog lights and everything. Multistrada is 23-ish with everything. This is 24. But those bikes have like adaptive radar and cruise control. They've got semi-active suspension, which this hasn't got.
Full Brembo.
Yeah, it's got everything thrown at it. And they're almost 2 or 3 bikes in one bike. So, you know, when I ride my KTM, I can get to an off-road section, press a button, and the suspension changes, and it'll cope with some decent off-road.
Yeah, well, yeah.
This is fully adjustable shower units, front and rear, quality units that work really well on the road. But if it works on the road, it can't work off-road. It can work off-road to a point, but its design parameter is small. Because if it works off-road, it's going to be a waterbed handling mess on-road. So there's only so much they can do with manually adjustable suspension and that weight.
So you felt that then when you went off-road?
Yeah,
or?
it's got a... So when you rode the trials bike, you've got no gears, no clutch, no heat, all those kind of all those attractive bits of electric. The weight is really low. So if you've ridden a BMW GS off-road, GSs feel like they've got this pendulum underneath them. They're so lovely. Like you can ride a GS at 2 miles an hour and it's just like, it's feather light. And it's got this lovely balance to it, and this has also.
Okay.
But you can't grab the clutch and blip the front over anything because, well, there's no clutch for starters. When you hit the throttle, even in the off-road modes, it's quite easy to light the rear tyre up.
Okay.
Because you've got so much torque. You've got, you know, double the torque of anything else in this market. And the suspension copes with off-road, especially for novices, or, you know, dusty lanes, gravel tracks, that kind of stuff. You go, oh, this is, you know, you're never going to hold the radiator and things like that. And it's got a nice balance to it. But when you just, it's not a KTM Super Adventure. You know, when you want to go that little bit more, but that is amplified by the noise because you can hear rocks hitting things, you can hear, you know, forks bottoming out, you can, you know, as you're riding it, you're like, oh, you're feeling sorry for the bike.
Well, I saw you on that GoPro clip. And...
Yeah, you're like, you're feeling sorry for the bike, and it's 24 grand.
Holy Jesus! That was a big bang.
Yeah.
Plus accessories. So if you want the fast charger, that's more. If you want the bigger battery, that's more. You do get the cable, but I think if you actually want the plug-in unit for your garage, that's another 500 quid.
Sure.
So once you start adding, there is loads of accessories, crash protection and solid panniers and bigger screens and everything. But once you start adding those bits and the fast charger and etc., you know, you're going to be £27,000 bike for a bike in the real world that you're going to have to stop every 90 to 100 mile on.
In your opinion then, is it, because a lot of the bikes sound really great, but it's got some significant downsides, the range, the price of the thing. Is it like a yes but not now for
that's
sort
a good,
of decision?
Yeah,
you know, because I mean Zero, like as naive as I am to bigger electric bikes, and I've not ridden one, you know, they've been around a few years.
Yeah,
and you know, you've obviously ridden a lot of this type of bike, or I perceive that you have.
Yeah.
Do you
even tried racing them?
Did you?
Yeah, not very well, but hey.
Right, but you had a go.
Had a go.
Yeah, you know, because a lot of the bikes seems to be like moving on. You know, electric bikes are moving on.
Yeah.
But do you think those barriers are gonna sort of be removed?
I think they're already.
Or have we hit sort of a plateau?
No, I think we're already starting to merge. You know, if we'd have said electric adventure bike 10 years ago, the thing would have weighed like 350 kilograms. It'd have had one mode. It looked awful. Do you know what I mean? Now it's comparable weight to a GS. The finish and the look of it is great. You know, how the plastic has got no fasteners or fittings, the components they use, the shower suspension, how it rides on the road. You know, you can change the engine braking. You've got lean sensitive ABS and traction control. You've got all these things that it needs in cruise control and the crawl gear and hill control. It's got all the bits that you need. So I think that line is, you know, it's coming up to, and I can see people going, do you know what?
Paying attention.
That's actually impressive. And as I said to the engineers, as a bike, and as what you guys have done to make that top work. That is impressive. It's just, is that range enough?
Well, I said to you off camera, didn't I? I said, look, if that had a Yamaha badge and a petrol motor, it was probably half the price.
Yeah.
I'm asking a lot of questions here, but you know it would sell, right? Because it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just whether it's got the right type of engine for people to, push the button and buy the thing. I think it's it sounds like a massively impressive bike. You're clearly really impressed with how it's ridden, and it's testament to the job that they've done with making it.
Yeah, the big proof is going to be the sales. When we sit down in 6 months' time, we look at those sales charts, or we look at all the comments underneath this clip, and they go, yeah, he did used to be taller. But if all the clips are like, range is terrible, range is terrible, range is terrible, then that's their perception of an adventure.
Yeah.
To my 8-year-old lad camping in the back garden and it's an adventure. To somebody else, you need to be at base camp in the Himalayas freezing your bits off. That's an adventure. So it all depends on what's an adventure.
Yes.
Is that range big enough? And as you said, if you're in London, if you're around the south, Sussex, you've got charging points. But if you're in the Highlands of Scotland and you're going to the Isle of Skye and wherever,
no chance.
You're going to be queuing up for your charging point.
Well, you're going to be pushing it, aren't you?
Yeah, it's a long way to push as well.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And it doesn't get any lighter. There's no wet or dry way. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. So that is just.
Because somebody did ask, what's the dry way? I was like that. I was like, with all fluids removed. So if we remove the fork oil, it'll be 1 kilogram less.
Yeah. That is absolutely fantastic.
Overall, this is the closest electric bike to a GS, which is the benchmark adventure bike for the last, 20, 30 years. It's got same size wheels as a GS, it's near enough the same weight as a GS. It's got Bosch control, lean sensitive traction control, multiple rider aids, cruise control, beautifully manually adjustable screen. It is ticking the boxes in the design department. Have gone, yeah, it needs that, it's got that, has it got that? Yeah, it's got that, has it got that? It's done the shopping list, we've got it. But range, possibly not enough. Price, possibly too high. When you go off-road, the manual suspension can only do so much.
But nevertheless, it's an impressive thing that is worthy of attention. It's not an important bike for Zero, it's an important bike for motorcycling. Yeah, well, on that note, I think we should draw it to a close. So look, thank you ever so much for watching this video. Please let us know in the comment section what you think about this bike. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and check out all the gear that we use to protect ourselves. That's in the description. Okay, we'll see you next time.